On the evening of November 9th, 1967, Marlon Brando walked backstage at the Belasco Theater on Broadway and saw a 52-year-old understudy named Joseph Martinez trembling in a corner. 2 hours before curtain, the lead actor had food poisoning. Martinez had rehearsed for 6 weeks but never performed the role. 1,200 people were waiting. The director talked about canceling. Brando walked over to Martinez and said 2 sentences. "You've done this 1,000 times in your head. Just walk out there." Martinez performed that night. Standing ovation. The next night, the lead actor returned. Martinez went back to understudy work and never told anyone about Brando's 2 sentences, not for 43 years, until his daughter found a note in his playbill after he died. Joseph Martinez had been working in theater since 1942. Born in the Bronx in 1915, he'd fallen in love with acting as a teenager watching shows in community theaters. After high school, he started getting small roles in off-Broadway productions, walk-ons, one-line parts, background characters. In 1945, after serving 2 years in the Army during World War II, Martinez returned to New York and committed to making acting his career. He worked constantly. Small roles in Broadway shows, touring productions, summer stock. By the early 1950s, he'd established himself as a reliable character actor. Not a star, but someone directors could count on to show up, know his lines, and do solid work. In 1958, Martinez started taking understudy work. The pay was decent and the pressure was lower than performing every night. He'd learn a lead role, sit backstage during performances, collect his paycheck. Occasionally, maybe once every few years, the lead actor would get sick and Martinez would go on. Those nights terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. By 1967, Martinez was 52 years old and had accepted his place in the theater ecosystem. He was an understudy and character actor. That's what he did. That's what he was good at. He didn't dream of stardom anymore, just wanted to keep working. In September 1967, Martinez was cast as the understudy for the lead role in The Inheritors, a new drama by playwright Robert Anderson. The play was set to open on Broadway in November. The lead actor was a well-known stage performer named David Clark. Martinez would learn Clark's part, attend all rehearsals, and be ready to go on if Clark couldn't perform. Martinez rehearsed for 6 weeks, learned every line, every blocking cue, every emotional beat. He'd done this dozens of times before, learned lead roles he'd probably never perform, but he took it seriously. That was the job. On November 9th, 1967, Martinez arrived at the Belasco Theater at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Opening night. He went to the understudy dressing room, changed into street clothes, he wouldn't be performing tonight, and sat down to wait out the show. At 6:15, the stage manager knocked on his door. "Joe, we've got a problem. David's sick, food poisoning. He can't go on." Martinez stood up. "How sick?" "He's been vomiting for an hour. Doctor says he needs to go home." "When does curtain go up?" 8 o'clock? Martinez looked at his watch. 1 hour and 45 minutes. "I can do it." "You sure?" "I've been rehearsing for 6 weeks. I know the part." The stage manager nodded. "Get into costume. I'll tell Arthur." Martinez went to David Clark's dressing room, started putting on the costume. His hands were shaking, not from fear of forgetting lines. He knew the lines cold, fear of failing, of disappointing 1,200 people who'd paid to see opening night of a new Broadway play. Arthur Penn, the director, came in 20 minutes later. "Joe, are you okay with this?" "I'm ready. If you're not comfortable, we can cancel. Refund tickets, reschedule for tomorrow." "No, I can do it." Penn looked at him carefully. "You're trembling." "I'm nervous, but I'm ready." Penn nodded. "Okay, you've got this." But he didn't sound convinced. After Penn left, Martinez sat in front of the mirror trying to calm down. He'd performed before. He knew the role. But this was Broadway opening night, critics in the audience. This could make or break the play's entire run. And he was the understudy nobody had heard of. At 7:30, someone knocked on the dressing room door. "Come in," Martinez called. Marlon Brando walked in. Martinez recognized him immediately. Everyone did. Brando was the biggest star in theater and film. But what was he doing backstage? "Arthur's friend," Brando said, answering the unspoken question. "Came to see opening night. Heard there's a situation. The lead actor got food poisoning. I'm going on." Brando looked at him. "You ready?" "I know the lines." "That's not what I asked." Martinez took a breath. "I'm terrified." Brando nodded. "Good. Terror means you care." He paused. "You've done this 1,000 times in your head. Just walk out there." Then Brando walked out of the dressing room. Martinez sat staring at the door. 2 sentences. That's all Brando had said. but something about the way he'd said them, matter of fact, not dramatic, just stating reality, cut through Martinez's panic. He had done this 1,000 times in his head. 6 weeks of rehearsals, months of learning the character, years of stage experience. He knew how to do this. He just had to walk out there and do it. At 8 o'clock, the stage manager called places. Martinez walked into the wings, took his position. The lights went down in the theater. The curtain rose. Martinez walked onto the stage. For the next 2 hours and 20 minutes, Joseph Martinez gave the performance of his life. He didn't forget a single line, hit every emotional beat, moved through the blocking flawlessly, became the character completely. When the final curtain came down, the audience erupted. Standing ovation. 1,200 people on their feet applauding. Martinez stood on stage, overwhelmed, barely able to process what had just happened. In the wings, Arthur Penn grabbed him. "Joe, that was incredible. Absolutely incredible." The cast surrounded him backstage, congratulating him, celebrating. Someone brought champagne. The energy was electric. Martinez looked around for Marlon Brando, but he was gone, had left during the show. The next morning, the reviews came out. The New York Times. A powerful new drama elevated by strong performances, particularly Joseph Martinez in the lead role. Variety. Martinez delivers a nuanced, compelling performance. Martinez read the reviews in his apartment, still processing that the night had actually happened. He'd done it. Performed a lead role on Broadway opening night, got a standing ovation, got good reviews. That evening, November 10th, Martinez arrived at the theater at 6:30. David Clark was already there, back from his food poisoning, getting ready to perform. The stage manager came to Martinez's dressing room. "Joe, David's back. You're off tonight." "I know. You were amazing last night." "Thank you." Martinez changed into his street clothes, went to the understudy room, and sat down, back to his regular position, waiting in case David couldn't perform. He never performed the lead role in The Inheritors again. The show ran for 6 months. David Clark performed every single night. Martinez sat backstage as his understudy, never going on. When the show closed in May 1968, Martinez went back to his regular work, character roles, understudying, small parts in Broadway and off-Broadway productions. He worked steadily for the next 42 years, never stopped, never complained, never told anyone about the night he'd performed the lead role in The Inheritors or about the 2 sentences Marlon Brando had said to him. In 1985, Martinez's wife asked him about his career. "Do you ever regret not being a star?" "No," Martinez said. "I had one perfect night. That's more than most people get." "What night?" "November 9th, 1967, opening night of The Inheritors." "Why was that perfect?" "Because I did something I didn't think I could do, and it worked." He didn't mention Brando. Didn't explain why that night had been different from other times he'd gone on as an understudy. Just kept it private. In 2003, at age 88, Martinez retired from acting. He'd worked for 61 years, performed in hundreds of shows, never had his name above the title, never became famous, but he'd worked consistently until his body couldn't do it anymore. On March 15th, 2010, Joseph Martinez died peacefully at home. He was 95 years old. His daughter, Maria Martinez, handled his estate. While sorting through his belongings, she found a box labeled Theater Memorabilia. Inside were playbills, photos, newspaper clippings from his 6 decades in theater. At the bottom of the box was a playbill from The Inheritors, November 9th, 1967. Maria opened it. Inside, written in her father's handwriting, was a note. "MB. Thank you for the 2 sentences that gave me one perfect night. I never needed another one. JM." Maria stared at the note. MB. Who was MB? And what 2 sentences? She started researching, found articles about The Inheritors opening night, read the reviews mentioning her father's performance, but nothing about MB or any sentences. She contacted the New York Public Library's theater collection, spoke with a theater historian named Rebecca Stein, explained what she'd found. "Can I see the note?" Stein asked. Maria sent a photo. Stein called back 2 hours later. "I think MB is Marlon Brando." "Marlon Brando? Why would Marlon Brando be at my father's opening night?" "He was friends with Arthur Penn, the director. I found a mention in Penn's biography that Brando attended the opening of The Inheritors in 1967. But what would Brando have said to my father?" "I don't know. But if your father kept this note for 43 years and never told anyone about it, it must have been important." Stein started investigating. She contacted surviving cast members from The Inheritors. Most remembered opening night, remembered that the lead actor had gotten food poisoning and the understudy had gone on. But none of them remembered seeing Marlon Brando backstage. Then, Stein found Arthur Penn's assistant from 1967, now retired and living in Connecticut. She called him. "Do you remember the opening night of The Inheritors?" Stein asked. "Of course. The lead actor got food poisoning. The understudy saved the show. Do you remember Marlon Brando being there?" The assistant was quiet for a moment. "Yes, Marlon came to see the show. He was backstage before curtain. I remember because I saw him talking to someone in the hallway. I think it was the understudy." "Do you remember what he said?" "No, I was too far away, but it was brief, maybe 30 seconds. Then Marlon went to his seat." That was the confirmation Stein needed. She wrote an article for American Theater magazine, published in June 2010. The two sentences that gave an actor his perfect night, Marlon Brando and Joseph Martinez. The article included Maria's discovery of the note, the timeline of opening night, Penn's assistant's testimony, and the reviews of Martinez's performance. It reconstructed what had happened on November 9, 1967, and explained why Martinez had kept it private for 43 years. The story circulated through theater communities. Actors shared it with each other. People who'd worked with Martinez were surprised. None of them had known. One actor who'd performed with Martinez in the 1980s told a reporter, "Joe never talked about himself, never bragged. I worked with him for 2 years and didn't know he'd performed a lead role on Broadway. That's the kind of man he was. Humble, professional, just did his work." The story reached Robert De Niro, who'd known Brando. In a 2011 interview, De Niro said, "That sounds exactly like Marlon. He'd show up, say exactly what needed to be said, nothing more, then leave." He understood that too many words dilute the message. What made the story remarkable was the simplicity of what Brando had done. He didn't give a long inspirational speech, didn't sit with Martinez and talk through his fears, just walked in, looked at him, said 2 sentences, and left. You've done this 1,000 times in your head. Just walk out there. 12 words. That's all it took. Because Martinez didn't need encouragement. He needed permission. Permission to trust himself. Permission to believe he could do what he'd been preparing to do for 6 weeks. And after that one night, Martinez never needed to perform a lead role again, because he'd proven to himself that he could. That was enough. He went back to being an understudy and character actor without resentment, without bitterness, just gratitude that he'd had one perfect night. That's what the note meant. "I never needed another one. Not because Martinez lacked ambition, but because that one night had given him everything he needed to know about himself. He could do it. He had done it. That was sufficient." Joseph Martinez worked for 42 more years after November 9, 1967. Small roles, understudying, supporting work, never complaining, never chasing stardom, just doing the work he loved. And he kept Brando's 2 sentences private because they were a gift, not something to commodify or use for credibility. Just a private moment between one actor helping another actor get on stage. Marlon Brando said 12 words. Joseph Martinez performed one perfect night, then went back to his regular work without needing recognition. That's not just about acting. That's about understanding that one moment of proving yourself can sustain you for a lifetime. You don't need constant validation. You just need to know once, definitively, that you're capable. Martinez knew. After November 9, 1967, he knew, and that was enough. 43 years later, when his daughter found a note in a playbill, the world learned what Joseph Martinez had known all along. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't a career. It's one perfect night that proves you can do what you always believed you could. And sometimes the greatest kindness isn't a long conversation. It's 2 sentences that cut through fear and give someone permission to walk on stage. That's what Marlon Brando gave Joseph Martinez. Not mentorship, not advice, just 12 words at exactly the right moment. And Martinez honored that gift by keeping it private, by not turning it into a story he told at parties, by not using Brando's name to elevate himself. Just kept working quietly for 40 more years, until he died at 95 with one perfect night in his memory and a note in his playbill thanking someone for 2 sentences. That's the real story. Not about stardom, about sufficiency, about one moment being enough to sustain a lifetime of work. Joseph Martinez had his moment, and he never needed another one.